Good day, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to Sensations English Webinars for Teachers. So thank you for joining us. This is our third webinar in the new Webinars for Teachers series, Teaching English with Graded, Authentic Global Resources. Over 4 weeks, this series explores different ways in which graded, authentic and global resources can benefit learners and support our work as teachers. Over the last 2 weeks, we've explored accent diversity with Gemma Archer and emergent language with Danny Norrington-Davies and Richard Chin. This week, Dr. Amina Douidi will be helping us to find effective ways to integrate global issues into our learners' classes. Finally, next Thursday, at the slightly earlier time of 12 noon UK time, Vicky Salmel will bring the series to a close with a look at planning lessons with video resources that have these important focuses, as well as digital literacies, critical thinking, and learner training built into them. I'm Adam, as I said, the Education Director, and if you need any help, please contact me in the chat. Just a reminder that if you are watching this webinar live, a CPD certificate will be sent to your email 24 hours after the webinar. If you're watching the recording, please make a note of your own professional development. The webinar will last an hour and will include time for questions at the end of Amina's talk. Please write your questions in the Q&A box. The Q&A button appears when you move your mouse to the bottom of the Zoom window. And if someone has already written the same question, you can click the thumbs up button next to that question to move it higher up the list instead of writing it again. Sensations English is focused on helping teachers develop their skills. We're delighted to be hosting regular webinars. You can view all our previous webinars on the Sensations English Webinars website, including our monthly webinars, another special series on using video in ELT, and the recordings from this current series. All of the recordings also come with the slides from the sessions as well. We hope that they will help you to develop your own practice and expand your use of authentic resources with your classes. Sensations English lesson resources are a great new advance in ELT content. We're delighted to offer teachers hundreds of videos and news article resources, all graded at 5 CEFR levels and all with ready-made learning activities. They make video and news accessible to all learners and hassle-free for teachers planning. There are 3 new 5-level resources to use each week, giving you access to the most up-to-date content to use with all your learners. Our Sensations English Schools edition includes logins for all of your teachers and students and a digital teacher gradebook, which lets you organize your students into classes, set tasks and monitor them live, and review your learners' progress over time. To start using this great resource in the Schools edition, go to the link I'll post into the chat later and contact us. Now to tell you a little bit more about today's speaker, Dr. Amina Douidi. Amina Douidi is a diversity, equality, inclusion, and intercultural communication consultant in ELT. She holds a PhD in modern languages and applied linguistics from the University of Southampton in the UK, where she investigated interculturality in Algerian English. Sorry, I'm getting my tongue tied. Interculturality in Algerian English textbooks and language classrooms. She is a DEI reviewer for publishers and pre-sessional EAP tutor in UK higher education. She also acts as co-chair elect of TESOL ICIS, championing contributions from teachers and researchers from the global majority. Dr. Douidi, thanks once again for being here. And it's over to you.
Thank you for having me. My bio is a mouthful. I'm aware of it, so that's why you got tongue-tied.
I love your bio. It's fabulous.
Thank you so much. I struggle sometimes to put an efficient summary of what I do in order not to confuse people, because I do a couple of more things than what you mentioned. But thank you so much for having me, Adam. I'm really excited about this. I've been sharing on my social media and people have been quite interactive with and seemed interested in the topic. So I'm excited and nervous a little bit, yeah.
Well, it's splendid. And yeah, I've seen the buzz. So over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So I'll be sharing my screen with you. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We will talk about an important topic today, global issues and how we can integrate it in the ELT classroom, the English language teaching classroom. So we will start by discussing what do we mean by global issues. Then we talk about the challenges and opportunities that talking about global issues and working with global issues in the classroom might have challenges and opportunities. So we're going to address these challenges and opportunities informed by research. We will also talk about practical ways we could integrate global issues in the classroom. And I'm going to use an example from Sensations English to demonstrate how I basically approach global issues and how I also invite you to address these issues in the classroom alongside language learning. So I would like to invite you, I will put this link in the chat. I would like to invite you to answer the question for me. What do we mean by global issues? You could either scan, if you are on your phone, you could click here, and then I'm gonna share with you the screen. So join the Mentimeter and help me answer the question, what do we mean by global issues? Here we go. I think you see my screen reload. There's an issue now. All right, here we go. We can see that the answers are have started to pop in. Famine, climate change, poverty, automation in relation to technology, and the fact that some technological innovations have been replacing a lot of jobs, pollution as well. Any more global issues? So with word clouds like this, the more a theme is mentioned, the bigger its size. So I'm guessing that a lot of us are thinking about climate change and poverty. Racism, artificial intelligence could be considered an issue, a global issue. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing with me these. Okay, so how can we address these global issues in the classroom? This is the topic of today. There are some opportunities and challenges to these global issues that researchers have investigated. But today we're going to talk about why are we interested in addressing this topic in the classroom. Have we been addressing them in the classroom before, or is it a new trend? So in 2015, the United Nations have put together a framework to help us break down the global issues that the 21st century, that we have in the 21st century into different categories, and categorizing these issues is supposed to help us break it down in order to address each issue separately, but also in relation to the other issues. So for example, the Sustainable Development Goals are approached as a framework, as a guide, as a plan for some to help us address these global issues. You can use the Sustainable Development Goals as a framework in your classroom if you want to identify a theme that you think your students would be more engaged in. And I'm gonna mention the SDG 17, which is very rarely talked about in relation to the SDGs in education, which is partnership for the goals. And this is where we have interdisciplinarity. This is where we have, for example, SDG 7, affordable and clean energy, discussed along with poverty, for example, SDG 1. And this is where we have different actors in the society and in the business world, in political world, working together in order to address the intersection of these issues. So you can break down the SDGs into different themes that you can address in the classroom, or you can address them in tandem or in intersection. According to the United Nations Foundation, just like you just mentioned, the top 5 key challenges that shape the future, and they are the challenges that we will need to address as a society, are climate change, then gender inequality, global health and pandemics, unethical use of technology, and wars and power conflicts. This reflects perfectly your answers in the Mentimeter. So in the chat, please, I would like to invite you to answer this question. What's the current hot topic in your country's news headlines? I gave an example here, Algeria, which is my home country. One of the headlines that popped up recently was an agreement signed to finance greenhouse projects. So if you could, in the chat, write your country column, and then the hot topic that is currently being discussed in your country. So I'm opening the chat now, and I would like to invite you to share with me the hot topic in your country that you have at the moment. Portugal, public health system. UK, cost of living crisis. Egypt, economics, inflation, pay rises. Thank you, Rani. Christopher talks about inflation. Algeria, cost of living. Keep them coming. Tunisia, pay rise, postponed. Algeria, import and export issues. You can see that there are some topics that are some issues that are experienced in the same in different countries, the same issues addressed in different countries. Portugal, we have unemployment. Egypt, cost of living. So far we've had cost of living in Tunisia, in Egypt, and in the UK. Unemployment, Malta, increase in construction and inflation. We had inflation as well in another context. In Egypt, in Malta as well. Lack of interest in the country's issues. In the example we have by Mahsa here in Iran, there are issues of boycott and censorship as well, I'm guessing. Mexico, issues of drugs. Issues of immigration. Very good, thank you so much. So you can see that there are issues that are experienced with different countries, the same issues, and you can see that there are other issues that are more local to a given country because of the political situation or because of the current climates that this country is experiencing. So my next question for you, and thank you again for being open with me and sharing with me the situation in your respective countries. This next question for you is, what's the latest hot, and I'm putting hot between inverted commas, topic you've discussed with your students, friends, or partners? So I'm assuming that a lot of you are teachers here. I'm also assuming that you have also social encounters where you're really concerned about something, and maybe in that social encounter with friends or with the people you live with, your partners, your family, you've been talking a lot about a certain topic. So what is this topic that is so personal to you that you've been discussing lately? In my case, it's been rising price of grocery shopping and how I used to leave the supermarket with full bags of grocery, enough to cover 2 weeks of food, with 50 pounds, 70 pounds, and now it's tripled that price. So that's something that I'm really concerned about. So I would like to invite you to discuss this in the chat with me. What is this personal topic that you really care about and you have been struggling with recently? So I'm going to read from the chat in order to share with you what everyone here is saying. So Rami from Egypt is saying that the hot topic in his life recently is artificial intelligence and how robots would be replacing teachers in the future. I love the emoji, Rami. Thank you so much. We have Marta from Portugal, who has been discussing with her friends and family politics, corruption, and the cost of living as well. Adam is sharing with us something that he is experiencing recently, which is strikes and industrial action in the UK. A lot of trains are in strikes, and train workers as well are fighting for their dignity and basic human rights. The Turkish elections in Turkey, it's a hot topic that Christopher is discussing. Rising costs, Randa is sharing with us rising costs in Algeria, just the same issues. I feel you, my sister. Shobha here, Dr. Shobharani is sharing with us topics she recently discussed, which are religion and politics. Mahsa, artificial intelligence tools. Hisham, developing my technological capabilities as a teacher to meet 21st century requirements. Sumaiha, economic issues, election, political corruption. These are topics that we sometimes discuss in the safety of our homes. Back in Algeria, when I pass through a cafe where there are a lot of men, most of the time it's political discussions and analyzing the political issues. Let me try to find more examples. Hanan here is mentioning cost of living in Algeria. Employment as well. Thank you, Hanan. So, all right, so we can see that there are hot topics that the country experiences or that we see in the news, and there are hot topics that you personally experience and you feel engaged and concerned about these topics. So sometimes when I read the news, I don't really feel concerned about what's going on, and sometimes the news inform my daily life. So it is the same thing for your students. So the framework I am putting forward here in order to address this topic in a pedagogical manner in your classroom is called Global Citizenship Education. So global citizenship education is started as a theory, it's developing as a practice, it is a praxis. Researchers investigate how the teachers can discuss ethical issues, and teachers struggle with how to manage their classroom as well as the challenges they might be facing with their school and their students. So according to Tasneem Ibrahim 2005, global citizenship education is about understanding the nature of global issues, as well as the range of ways in which those with power and resources can be influenced to act in a globally responsible way. I have highlighted or boldened certain expressions here. The concept of power is central to global citizenship education, because if we take a descriptive approach to these issues, we are only addressing the surface level. So if we say there are issues of cost of living, and we discuss this with our students without addressing the place of power dynamics and who holds that power, and where this inequality or how this power inequality is distributed, we are addressing the surface level. So the idea here is that we understand the nature of it and link it to power and resources, but also the aim goal is not just to talk about this issue and express oneself, although it can be very therapeutical to talk about the struggles of your daily life and also the global issues. But the idea from global citizenship education, the final outcome, is to influence change, is to develop the skills and the empathy and the competencies to act. And this is where it gets tricky. So how can those in power and those with the resources can be influenced to act in a globally responsible way? And this is where the tricky bit happens. So the classroom, global issues in the classroom. There are discussions about where is it the most appropriate, which classroom, which sessions, which subjects should address global issues. From a curriculum design perspective, historically, we have addressed these issues in the subjects such as social sciences and political sciences. For example, the topic of immigration is something that we can discuss in a social sciences class. We can talk about the how, the why, the historical reasons, the economic inequality and economic crisis that might affect the movement of people from one place to another. And now we are talking about immigration. We call it climate immigration, climate crisis immigration, where people are moving from one place to another because of the unbearable weather conditions. Maybe we can talk about global issues in natural sciences class. One of the studies used the example of Coca-Cola, a big corporation using water resources in countries such as Mexico and India, and which deprives the local community from water. So this is an issue where we can actually talk about power and resources, and how these resources are distributed in a very unequal way, and it affects the livelihood of people. So we can talk about this in the natural sciences subject. In Algeria, my home country, we talk about citizenship education, التربية المدنية, the education to be a good citizen, basically. And it is about the rights and duties to the nation, especially in a young country such as Algeria that gained its independence around 60 years ago. So it is quite a young country that is trying to develop a sense of nationhood and a sense of belonging to the nation. So the topics of citizenship in relation to the nation are introduced from an early age, from primary school education. And now we can see more topics when it comes to citizenship education about the environment, planting trees, and about the rest of the world, and the animal world, and the natural world as well. Another subject we can address global issues in is history and geography, and this is where we can talk about colonization and the role of colonization in the current issues we are experiencing now. One of them would be, for instance, immigration. Teacher education, math teachers, science teachers, all teachers, all subject matter teachers are now being trained on global issues in their teacher training, either in service or pre-service or during CPDs, and they are challenged to include them in their subject matter. So this is also a very innovative way to address global issues, and teacher education and teacher training is a place where we can teach global issues. Language education as well, language classrooms, English language classrooms. I'm guessing a lot of you here are English language teachers, and this is also a place where we can discuss global issues alongside language learning. And I'm going to share with you an example here today. So what are the challenges that teachers face when it comes to global issues? Sund and PASHB 2018 conducted an action research where they worked with teachers and worked with them in a progressive way where they shared their reflections, etc. They've found that one of the challenges of they argue that one of the challenges of integrating global issues in the classroom applying a global ethical dimension in education, and because it is complex and contentious. So the reason why it is complex intentions, they illustrate it in a sense of, for example, if we are in the global north, let's say in the US or in the UK, poverty or the issue of poverty can be addressed as the issue that the global south has, or an issue that you can find only in countries in the African continent or in the Asian continent. That poverty is something that other people have, and this is an ethical problem that they warn about. The other complex issue is about this power inequality that might happen in the classroom, and you might also have concerns of bringing politics into the classroom. So I talk to a lot of teachers, and I provide training like this one with mainly language teachers in the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the main worry that teachers have is, I don't want to be bringing my ideology into the classroom. I don't want to influence my students with my own ideologies, or I don't want other people's ideologies to influence my students' classroom. I am here to teach the language, and I'm going to focus on the language. So bringing politics into the classroom is a challenge that teachers grapple with. And now I'm going to ask you in the chat, please tell me what kind of challenges you think you have, or you have actually, when it comes to introducing global issues in the classroom. So I've opened the chat, and I'm going to be reading your answers, and I would like to know what kind of challenges that prevents you, what kind of barriers that stops you from introducing global issues in the classroom. So Behnaz is sharing a very insightful point, cultural background. I'm guessing that's the cultural background of the students can be one of the reasons. Different background, different individual differences. Yes, Rani. Yes, so the identities of our students and what we think are their beliefs could be a challenge. Resistance to new different ideas, Christopher. I'm guessing the resistance is from the school, maybe the school leaders. I'm not sure if one of the this resistance you're talking about is from the students, or maybe from yourself. You are resistant to changing the way you've been doing things, or we've been doing things in our classroom. It can be time consuming. From students, I was thinking, yes, Christopher. Okay, thank you so much. The ability of interacting while thinking critically, being open and different views. So yes, the classroom environment can become conflictive if we bring in this issue without having a proper pedagogy, thoughtful way, without having a thoughtful and planned way to address it. Sumaya is sharing, I am teaching in a country which is not my hometown, in my home country. It makes it difficult to discuss some topics for which I have no or less background knowledge. Yes, lack of the belief, I guess, the belief that we are not equipped as language teachers to address this topic, especially if they have a global dimension when it comes to trying to understand the different power dynamics of who controls what and why this happens. It makes sense. if you bring in an economic perspective to it, and you're a language teacher, it's very difficult to learn the economical jargon and then transmit it to your students or offer it to your students as a way to discuss global issues. Thank you so much for these insights. Okay, so Hisham is sharing one more comment. It says, teachers are not neutral and cannot be neutral. We are all implicated in a kind of political or cultural camp. MEHSA, political issues, guidelines, consequences for the safety maybe of the students. Okay, very good. Thank you so much. It's very interesting to see how you perceive these challenges. I will not be able to read your comment, Abdul Raouf. I'm going to move on to the challenges that students have been documenting to have. And then maybe I can review your comment later on. So what kind of challenges that the research shows do the students say they have? So a state of denial. We have a very good friend of mine, Harry Waters, talks about this distance that we can have about the climate crisis, for instance, if you show polar bears and you show the North Pole and the and it's something that is very far away that you cannot see and maybe see as being something that doesn't concern you directly, and you can tend to deny it if you don't have the right information. So the state of denial, the students might be in denial, and there is evidence to show that. So in 1998, Higgs mentioned the state of denial. A state of learned helplessness, NAJO, 2005. These global issues are, let's say, negative issues. They can affect, they can be approached in a very dramatic way, and they can be also understood by the students as something that they can't do anything about. It's something too big for them to address. We talked earlier in the beginning about the fact of taking action and influencing people to act. So the state of helplessness is something that can be experienced by the students. Concerns about bringing politics into the classroom is also something that the students experience as well as the teacher. And also the emotional challenges. Lamia Mushi in her thesis talks about the topic of immigration through literature, and how some of the students or that were discussing the topic were in tears, basically because of how dramatic certain situations are, and it might affect the mental health of the students. So these are some of the challenges that we can be facing. Okay, so I am going to share with you on the bright side, there are opportunities to addressing global issues in the classroom. So Sund and Pashby 2018 talk about critical and collaborative work in the classroom could possibly lead to addressing global issues outside of the classroom. And that's what we hope for. The world is way bigger than our classrooms. And if we are to expect any change or action, sometimes it is taken outside of the classroom. Again, with a lot of caution and precaution. A lot of schools engage in cleaning missions in their neighborhoods. A lot of schools promote campaigning for the environment or for workers' rights, etc., without warning about the dangers that the students could be exposed to. So there are opportunities to take these issues outside the classroom. However, these opportunities should be taken into consideration the safety of the students. Siham Salem 2021 talks about the impact on the student. She says, students saw themselves to have potential roles in addressing global issues, developing communication skills, nurturing values and attitudes, as well as encouraging actions. And here we're talking about the sense of empowerment. She interviewed teachers, students in a higher education context, in the context of Algeria, and this sense of empowerment is something that came up very strongly. So to sum up, there are challenges and opportunities to promoting global issues in the classroom. So the challenges and opportunities, let's say the opportunities, gaining knowledge and understanding. And one of the challenge is being careful and being very conscientious regarding superficial knowledge. So I am here inviting you to be aware of that. The role of emotions, it can be a good opportunity because you might have a sense of goodness. You might feel good about yourself if you have the knowledge and feel the ability that you have the ability to act. However, there might be the challenge of being disturbed and triggered emotionally. So that's something you need to be careful about. The sense of identity as self-image is also a challenge and an opportunity. I used to label myself a period activist. So that gave me a sense of image as someone who fights for equality for girls, and I invite the schools and people and charities to provide sanitary pads for free for young girls in schools, etc. So and menstruating people as well. So the sense of identity and the way I positioned myself as a period activist gave me a lot of self love and self appreciation as well. So, and it did help me in my professional and critical thinking. However, the sense of identity is important. So you might find that it is a good opportunity for students to position themselves in the world as active contributors to the society. One of the opportunities is to deconstruct colonial legacies, stereotypes, and hidden meanings. However, one of the challenges might be maybe the lack of understanding of these topics. Therefore, you might be maybe addressing them just superficially in the classroom. Pedagogy has challenges and opportunities, and that's something I'm going to talk about next. The final challenge and opportunity is progression and assessment. It's very hard to assess students on how good willing they are, or what is their attitude towards certain issue. And if they don't have the same attitude as us, this is an ethical issue. Do we fail them? And do we assess them on these attitudes? So this is a whole different field of research. I'm just here inviting you to think about it. Yes. Next, I'm going to share with you an audio script from Sensations English, and then I'm going to share with you how I would be using this audio in order to address a global issue, which is gender equity and equality in the classroom via a task-based lesson plan. So I'm going to this audio with you. The title of the audio is called Glasgow, UK first feminist city.
I can't hear it, Amina.
Okay, I can share with you the script and I will be reading it. That was my other solution. So let me try and share my screen with you. Here we go. So it says Glasgow, a city of women. Let me show you how first the Global Sensations, the Sensations English platform looks like. They have different scripts or videos
that are about the same topic, but in different common European framework of reference levels. So I've chosen this video level B1 pre-intermediate, and it also exists, it's an audio, sorry, it also exists in intermediate level. So I'm going to share with you this one, and I am reading as well from the screen. So you can notice, you can observe here that for this level, let me share here. For this level, the title is Glasgow Now a City for Women. And the reason that the choice of word here is for women, it's because the word feminist can be considered a higher level term. So it is something that you might find in B1 plus intermediate level. So we can see that the title changes to Glasgow becomes a feminist city. Yeah, so I'm going to take this one, okay? Let's say B1 plus. Glasgow City has decided to become the UK's first feminist city. The Scottish Council says it's going to change its approach to city planning. It will put women first, as well as minority groups such as people of color, wheelchair users, and also people who are non-binary. Historically, men have designed towns and cities to suit their needs and preferences. Staying safe and making places easy to reach are issues which probably aren't considered. The idea was brought to Glasgow's council meeting by Holly Bruce, a member of the Green Party. She felt that women and others have diverse needs. According to her, these needs aren't discussed at present. So I'm not going to continue reading. I am not going to carry on reading the text. It is something that you can access on the platform, but the idea that there is a feminist approach to planning cities, that's the main theme. So let's go back to how I would use such text or such audio, or if it is in a video format, how I would use it in the classroom. I'm putting this as a proposal, and then I'm going to show you how you can adapt it to the different common European framework of reference. Okay, so I started with a pre-listening activity, deconstructing the concepts. And the two concepts that we are discussing here are city and feminism. We mentioned that feminism was considered a B1 plus level word, and maybe you might need to introduce it or discuss it with your students. They probably are aware of it in other languages. Maybe they speak other languages and they're familiar with the concept. So it's not necessarily that you avoid this word. You could as well use it with your students. Adam, can you confirm that my reading of the text was clear?
Yeah, it was really good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so two concepts we will discuss in the pre-listening task, which is city and feminism. You ask your students to be organized in two teams of 3 or 4, and you will ask them to generate keywords in relation to these two concepts, the concept of city and the concept of feminism. They will create a mind map. Maybe team A will focus on feminism and team B will focus on city, and then they will be together, working together collaboratively, and then try to find links between the concepts of team A and team B. So if we're talking about roads, what's the relationship between roads and equality? What could be a relationship between buildings and women and girls? What could be the relationship between parks and equality? Okay, so this is something that they will discuss among themselves. If the language proficiency is basic or intermediate, I think as a culture in the classroom, it's up to you to decide whether you allow translanguaging, whether you allow them to speak in different languages in order to make sense of the material. They would have the audio afterwards and the script afterwards, so the vocabulary, they haven't been exposed to it yet, but you could provide them with definitions or actually ask them to use a learner dictionary for definitions, and they can use their phones as well. Why not? So here the idea is to give them the free flow of ideas and the free flow of thoughts and speaking. So once they've established relationships between city and feminism, and you need to help them do that, because it shouldn't be out of the blue. Why are we talking about cities and feminism? But you should be able to give them some backgrounds. So once you do that, then you can introduce the listening, the audio or any video article, whatever you choose as support to discuss Glasgow's decision to become a UK's first feminist city. You can ask them questions. Sorry for the numbering. It should be 1, 2, 3. These are 3 questions. You can have handouts, or you can share your screen, or you can do it in the whiteboard or the blackboard. Why were places usually designed according to men's needs in the past? And this way you can have a debate and a discussion in the classroom. The answer is supposed to be town planners were mostly men, architectures were mostly men, historically speaking, and which led to towns being organized from a men's perspective. What does Glasgow Council want to prioritize in their planning? And here, this is an answer from the text, and here the idea is to prioritize women's needs and inclusion of minority groups, and they should be able to find this answer based on the text. What are some of the important features of feminist city mentioned in the text? Safety and comfort are themes that they can come up with based on the text. This is the most important bit for me. So the listening bit is language focused, and this is global issues focused, the post-listening activity, and make sure to dedicate enough time in the lesson to discuss this. So you ask them to draw routes from their home to school. Which roads do they take? Which routes do they take to come to school? And you invite them to reflect about why and what they notice, which landmarks, which street names, why they have chosen these streets would be the second thing they discuss in pairs. So which factors influenced your choice of this route? And they make a list. They compare as well their lists. If you mix the students, if you have a student with disability, if you have females, males, non-binary students, maybe trans students as well, if you have them in the classroom, you will see that their experiences of the streets is different. So some of them maybe are driven by their parents, and you ask them why. Is it far away, etc. So some parents worry for the safety of their children. Some females worry of their own safety. Maybe they decide one day to take a different road because they are dressed a certain way and they don't feel safe in certain neighborhoods. So these are things that they are very local. Although the topic we talked about is in Glasgow, the locality of the issue is very, very important and relevant. And the goal here is for them to develop the language to speak about their local and personal experiences. So by using the language from the text, but also using the learner dictionary or their phones, etc., they can start expressing their lived experience about safety or comfort, and also about just enjoying the view when you walk into school, whether you would enjoy it or not. We talked about action, yeah, and action inside the classroom is very hard to achieve. However, if you take the opportunity of global issues outside of classroom, you can invite the student to reflect on 3 ways. One of the routes you've been avoiding could be improved. And here you can talk about power. Who has the power to improve those routes? So there are things you can discuss. This is Glasgow, a country in the global north, but you can also discuss countries in the global south. And this is what Sensations English have. They have a variety of resources from different contexts. And one of the videos I found very, very interesting was about, it reminded me about my grandma who used to trade gold with her friends. That's why I chose this video. So women money changers, they exchange money from different currencies, help Djibouti economy. And that's a very good video to discuss economy and women and how you bring it to the locality, the same way I linked it to my grandma business acumen. There is something that you could also talk about, but here I am warning you about the impact, emotional impact that such topics can trigger into your students. So there is also an audio about rules on smacking children in the UK, hitting children in the UK, what does the law do, etc. However, please consider how could this topic could be triggering to your students. So why am I bringing topics from the global south and the global north? In order to address the power imbalance that I talked about at the beginning. And this power imbalance is breaking the gap of like poverty is a south issue and or is a north issue, right? So it's something that we experience locally, but it is also experienced in different parts of the world, and that would help decolonize the mind and decolonize the curriculum. These are my references, and I will be looking at the Q&A space. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you ever so much, Dr. Amina Douidi. That's an amazingly wonderful talk. We have got time for questions. No one has actually added any questions to the chat, to the Q&A box yet. So if you want to do that, please, you can find that by scrolling down to the bottom of the screen or moving your mouse to the bottom of the screen and the Q&A button appears. I have got a couple of questions I was thinking of that I can maybe start off with. I mean, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
And the first one is one that I often hear when I'm talking about global issues with students, and it's about students' reaction. The teachers are often worried how the students will react if they take a global issues approach in the classroom. Have you got any advice or have you had any experience of that you can give some advice on?
So if we take from, thank you so much for your question, Adam. Students' worries and how the students would worry is something that Abdurraouf is mentioning. I'm going to read his comment here, and then I will try to link your questions to his comments and what I think about this perspective. So he says, an issue I face comes from students who are extremely curious about personal information of others. This comes from a Turkish way of thinking that any new person should be opened to answer any questions regarding their religious, political, ideological points of view without holding back. As a foreign teacher, I tend to make boundaries with students about these, and it causes some difficulties in class. So there are here a couple of issues. The the teacher's belief and cultural understanding of what should be appropriate, what should be in the classroom. I think if we create, again, linking to your question, Adam, if we create from the very start of our year as teachers a safe space, something that emerges from the students as well, a culture that is constructed with the students, it would be helpful. So the idea would be at the beginning of the year, you sit with your students, you dedicate a whole session about what is appropriate to do in our classrooms, in our sessions, what kind of topics you feel we shouldn't be addressing, why, how can we make sure that everyone is safe and everyone is comfortable. So having this open discussion and co-constructing the quote unquote rules helps establishing a common ground, right? Then we have the issue of privacy and vulnerability. Of course, if I've been in classrooms with secondary school students in Spain, because my name is Amina, they would come to me and they would say, my sister is called Amina, are you Muslim? And I'm like, yes, I am. And I am comfortable with saying the fact that I am Muslim, but I don't think other people would be comfortable sharing their religious belief, right? However, teenagers, maybe young learners wouldn't have the social, let's say, the social etiquette of respecting people's privacy. So that's why you can create an anonymous questionnaire that you could provide to your students with very specific questions about the things that they are comfortable talking about and the things that they don't want to talk about. And this way you create a respectful culture in the classroom. I'm not sure if I addressed your concern, Adam.
I think that's a very, very good answer, and not one that I've heard before. So thank you very much. We have another question. This one is from Samaya, and they say, so if teachers try to address global issues in the classes and try to impact their students and encourage them to do something in a global level, who is going to evaluate the credibility of the teachers?
So teachers are assessed by inspectors. They have very limited time, and sometimes they have prescribed textbooks and they have very clear curriculum. And at the end of maybe 3 years, their students are supposed to sit for a national exam where everyone has access to the same content for the purpose of equality. Right? And these global issues can be considered as extracurricular in a lot of contexts, as something additional that students and teachers can do. Okay, so this is something that the teachers is responsible of. If they want to develop professionally, it's something that they can document, and there are a lot of organizations that help them recognize their work. So for example, if you take TESOL International, they have best teachers awards. There are a lot of competitions about greening the ELT or addressing the environment issues in the ELT, and there are rewards and competitions that the teachers can submit their work to. So even if there are institutions that doesn't recognize the work and effort that is done, sometimes the reward comes from the recognition of from the students and the acknowledgements of the parents. And sometimes if you want a professional recognition, there are other bodies outside of your institution that most of the time offer a call for classroom testimony. There are other platforms that offer lesson plans sharing and things like that. So you can build this credibility professionally by participating within the international sphere of continuous professional development.
And something else I'd maybe like to add to that as well is the reliability of the resources that you're using and the credibility of the resources that you're bringing into the classroom as well. And that's kind of part of our responsibility as teachers to do that. Yes,
one of the challenges is fake news and fake information. One of the challenges is also misled or misinformed things about either poverty or equality between genders or etc., things like that. So how can we have credible resources? I would say avoid using ChatGPT and find maybe academic resources that have been peer reviewed and yeah, but also your experience can inform you about that.
Thank you very much, Dr. Amina Adouidi. I think that's all we've got time for, unfortunately. Thank you so much for that excellent talk. I'm just going to share my screen very briefly to say a couple of things.
Well, I'm going to just say thank you for all those who attended. I had so much fun and I hope to be interacting with them on LinkedIn.
Definitely. And you can find posts on LinkedIn. That's one of my comments, to keep up the conversation. You'll have seen some posts on LinkedIn or other social media about this talk and this series, and please feel free to share and comment on those posts to add to the conversation. If you haven't already, please remember to sign up for the final webinar in the series and join us next week to explore meaningful learning experiences with video in ELT with Vicky Salmel. And you can catch up on any of the webinars you've missed at sensationsenglishwebinars.co.uk. The next comment is about using our socials, which we've already talked about. Just a reminder that you can get some peer-reviewed and fact-checked, quality fact-checked resources for these kinds of topics on Sensations English. We work with the Agence France Presse, the world's leading fact-checking news organization, and make sure that our content is very much robust and helps teachers to deal with these issues in a balanced and, as far as possible, objective way. You can also follow the links for on the screen now, and which I'll post in the chat, to use our social media as well. Except for that, I've just got to say thank you ever so much to Dr. Amina Douidi again. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you speak for us today on this really important issue, which is often addressed with less clarity and focus than you have given it. So we are just amazed at that, and thank you very, very much for that. Please do keep in touch and join us again for another webinar very soon. Thank you very much. Any final words?
I miss my daughter. I'm just gonna run to her.
Go for it. Yeah, thank you very much.
I won't be logging out. Maybe I can see you later. But
definitely. Okay.
Okay. Thank you,
everybody. Have a great day, afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world, and see you very soon. Take care. Bye-bye.